There's a moment, right before your world changes, when the air feels too still, like the room knows something you don't, like the silence is holding its breath. That's what it felt like that morning. Before she said a word, before she even looked up, I felt it in my bones, the shift. And even though I didn't know what was coming, I knew it wasn't good. My name is Paul Brenner. I'm 58 years old, or at least I was when it happened. At the time, I was Senior Vice President of Client Relations at Halberstam & Company, a private financial consultancy firm based out of Phoenix. I started there when I was 30. Straight out of the Navy and 2 years into my accounting degree. Back then, we were a skeleton crew operating out of a single-floor downtown office with second-hand desks and rotary phones. I still remember the smell of that place. Cheap carpet, fresh toner, stale coffee, and hope. There was hope in the walls. We were building something. I was the first to arrive, last to leave. Never called in sick. Not once. Not in 28 years. I handled the clients no one else could. The high net worth, high maintenance types who wanted to scream at someone when the market dipped. I took the heat, smiled through it, solved the problem before anyone above me even knew there was one. I trained half the department from scratch. Sat across from kids, fresh out of college who couldn't spell fiduciary, and walked them through the fire until they became the kind of people who could take my job. I stayed when the company was sold. I stayed through 3 CEOs. I stayed when they slashed bonuses during the 2008 crash, even though I brought in 2 new accounts that year that kept the lights on. I stayed because I believed in loyalty. I missed my son's middle school graduation for a last-minute client call. I forgot my own birthday one year because I was on a red-eye to meet a panicked investor in Boston. I wore the same pair of Oxfords for over a decade until the sole finally cracked open. I still have them in a box somewhere. Not because they were special, but because they were there, for all of it. Like me. So when I got the calendar invite that morning, quick sync, 9:15 a.m., I didn't think much of it. The sender was Madison Grace, our newly appointed Director of Culture and Innovation. 27 years old, Columbia graduate. Her resume said she redefined human-centered work ecosystems at a startup in San Francisco. Translation: she hosted Zoom yoga and put beanbags in the lobby. But she was sharp, confident, knew how to talk in LinkedIn buzzwords. The board loved her. I knocked once, stepped into her office. She didn't look up, just kept scrolling on her phone. Her desk was covered in pastel stationery and energy drinks. There was a ring light on the corner, probably for her team videos. The wall behind her had a neon sign that said, "Good vibes only." She finally looked up, smiled like I was a student coming in for a parent-teacher conference. "Paul, thanks for coming in," she said, her voice just a bit too cheerful. I sat down, straightened my tie, waited. She leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on the desk. "I'll be direct," she said. "We've been assessing team alignment with our evolving culture goals, and after some tough conversations with leadership, we feel like your approach, while incredibly valued in the past, may not be in sync with where Halberstam is headed." She paused, like she expected me to say something. I didn't. "You're just very old school," she added gently. "And that's not a criticism. It's just the energy's different now. Clients want fast movement, digital-first solutions, younger faces, agile mindsets." She slid a folder across the desk. I didn't reach for it. "In lieu of termination notice, we've included a severance option that's, honestly, quite generous." I nodded once. Slowly. She picked up her phone again, opened TikTok. I know because I saw the little black and white music note logo light up. She started typing with her thumbs as she spoke. "There's a 23-year-old in our pipeline who who's been shadowing with marketing. She's got a great vibe, understands the newer platforms. She'll be sitting in with your clients starting next week. My name wasn't even cold on the door yet. I stood, buttoned my jacket, reached across the desk, and shook her hand. She blinked. Surprised, I think. She expected anger, outburst, maybe begging. But I didn't say a word. I turned, walked out, and something inside me clicked. Not rage, not sadness, just stillness. Like the first breath of wind before a storm. I didn't feel angry when I walked out of that office. That's the strange part. No tightness in my chest, no burning in my throat. It wasn't sadness either. No weight of grief pressing down. I just felt still. Hollow, maybe. Like someone had emptied me out without me noticing. Like my body knew before my mind did that a chapter had ended. The morning sun hit the pavement like it didn't care. Cars rolled by. People laughed into phones. The world kept spinning without even the courtesy of a pause. I moved through the parking lot like a man underwater, keys in hand, tie still straight, shoes still polished. I had nothing in my arms, no box, no files, no goodbye mug. Just my silence. The drive home was quiet. No music, no talk radio. I didn't call anyone. I didn't even let myself rehearse what I should have said to her. What would have been the point? She had already decided. The words wouldn't have landed anyway. She was from a different language, a different world. Her world was made of hashtags and espresso shots and dopamine loops. Mine was made of handshakes, long lunches, and eye contact. It wasn't that one was better, just that we were never going to speak the same code. When I got home, I sat on the edge of the couch and stared at the wall for a long time. The kind of long where the light shifts, and you don't notice until the shadows change shape. I didn't feel broken, just unplugged. I didn't move. I didn't drink. I didn't cry. I just sat there and breathed. And then, around midnight, something kicked in. Some motor deep in the chest, faint, mechanical, slow. I stood up and walked to the garage. There was a box in the far back corner under 2 decades of dust and forgotten hobbies. I hadn't opened it since my second year at Halberstam, back when we still used floppy disks and printed emails, back when I believed we were building something that would last. The box was heavier than I remembered. Inside were files, lots of them, memos I'd saved, reports I'd printed because I didn't trust digital alone, old flash drives labeled with years, not topics, sticky notes with passwords I wasn't supposed to have, meeting minutes I wasn't supposed to keep, and one thin black notebook, my own log, not detailed enough to be incriminating, just enough to be dangerous. See, I wasn't just a client guy. I was a fixer, a cleaner. When things got messy, internally or externally, I was the one who made it go away. Quietly. I covered for others. I buried a few bad decisions. I played dumb when the spreadsheets didn't add up. I rerouted a few problems before they ever reached legal. I didn't do it for power. I did it because I thought I was protecting the company, because I thought I mattered. And now? Now I was a dusty file in a digital drawer. Obsolete? No. Archived. And I knew, the minute I peeled back the first layer of papers, that they'd forgotten what I kept. They'd assumed I'd moved on, that I'd boxed up my history and let it rot in the dark. They underestimated how well I documented everything, not out of spite, out of habit. My mind is a catalog. My office was always tidy. My records, even tidier. I didn't sleep. For 3 days I stayed up, sorting it all. Flash drive after flash drive, file after file. Some of it was old noise, stuff I thought might matter but didn't. But then I started seeing a pattern. The numbers weren't random. The names weren't random. Something small at first, an overlap in vendor contracts. A name that kept appearing in internal memos from 2 years ago. then last year, then again, recently, on one of the onboarding forms for the new hires. I remembered that name. Not a person, a company, a third-party consulting firm supposedly used for culture integration. It was Madison's former employer. And it wasn't just a coincidence. There were payouts, approval trails, unusual retention bonuses, NDAs tied to policy changes, and her name showed up on all of them, either directly or buried in metadata I knew how to extract. I kept digging, quietly, no internet searches, no emails, just me, my records, and my memory. By the end of day 3, I had it mapped out. Not just a mistake, a pipeline. She hadn't just climbed the ladder. She'd built a shortcut and hidden the rubble under corporate wellness language. She had ghost signatures on performance reviews. She had kickbacks masked as marketing reimbursements. And worse, she'd erased the digital paper trail on our server. But not mine. She didn't know I kept backups. She didn't know I remembered everything. She didn't know. I was awake now. There's a difference between revenge and revelation. One is loud, the other is surgical. I didn't want to destroy her. I wanted her to see herself, really see herself. And I knew exactly how to do it. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't post anything online or gossip to old coworkers. I didn't need an audience. This wasn't about spectacle. It was about precision. So I did what I've always done. I worked the problem quietly, like a leak in the hull no one else noticed. I opened a fresh folder on my home desktop. I named it Clarity. And then I began writing the letter. It wasn't long, just under 2 pages. Every word weighed, every sentence airtight. I didn't rant. I didn't insult. I simply laid out the truth, like a blueprint. I included exact dates, transfers processed under vague expense codes. I listed names of shell vendors cross-referenced with Madison's professional history. I quoted policies from Halberstam's own handbook about third-party relations and ethics disclosure. Then, I attached the screenshots, the digital signatures, the timestamps, a copy of a retention bonus dated 2 months before she was officially hired, and a short list of cultural initiative reimbursements that suspiciously aligned with her former employer's invoice history. But I didn't accuse her. No, I asked her a single question. Can you explain how these transactions align with your stated commitment to transparency? That was it. No threat, no demand, just a mirror. A mirror she wouldn't be able to look into without watching herself unravel. I printed the letter on heavyweight ivory stock. No header, no return address. I folded it once, sealed it in a plain white envelope, and left it unmarked except for her name, Madison Grace. I slipped a USB drive inside. Then I waited until Friday evening. I knew the office would be empty by 7. The cleaning crew didn't arrive until 9. I parked 2 blocks away and walked in through the side entrance. My badge still worked. They hadn't deactivated it yet. Or maybe they hadn't even thought to. People like her never consider that someone might still have keys to the machine they replaced. I took the stairs to the 3rd floor. The hallway was dim, quiet. Her office door was shut. That smug little neon sign inside still glowed through the frosted glass. Good vibes only. I slid the envelope under the door and walked away. No noise, no second thoughts. As I stepped outside, the air was cool. Street lamps buzzed faintly. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Life went on. And yet, I knew that inside that envelope, I had reset the trajectory of hers. I didn't need to be there when she read it. I didn't need to see her face. But I imagined it anyway. I imagined her strolling in Monday morning with her oat milk latte, scrolling through emails with one hand and snapping a selfie with the other, then seeing the envelope on the floor. Curious, maybe amused, picking it up with a little smirk, expecting it to be some old client farewell letter. opening it slowly, still distracted, sipping her drink, then reading, and stopping. Eyes narrowing, the latte cooling in her hand, her jaw setting, the USB drive slipping out and landing in her palm like a weight. I imagined her flipping through the pages again. The second time slower, the third time frantic. I imagined the color draining from her face when she recognized the metadata. When she realized the screenshots were real, the approvals traceable. I imagined her rushing to her computer, pulling up the server, only to find the trail already wiped. Not by me, but by her. Her own cover-up leaving nothing but the burn marks of guilt. I imagined her realizing the only existing copies were now in her hands, and somewhere else. Because I didn't just write the letter. I mailed a copy to someone she feared more than me. Someone with a title and a board vote and a reputation to protect, just in case. Because this wasn't revenge. It was insurance. It was leverage. It was a mirror, mounted to her own door. She made herself the star of the show. I simply gave her a front row seat. I imagined her sitting there, silent, the room spinning, the walls closing in, not because of what I said, but because of what she'd done. And suddenly I wasn't obsolete. I was dangerous. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break protocol. I didn't ask for a single thing. I just told the truth and watched the weight of it settle like dust across everything she built on lies. It started on a Wednesday. I was out on the porch, mug in hand, watching the morning drift in slow and gray across the yard. The air had that early spring bite to it, sharp but not cruel. The kind of morning where nothing feels urgent, but everything feels awake. My phone buzzed on the side table. It was Brian, one of the last decent ones still left at Halberstam. We hadn't spoken since I left. Just a few half-hearted texts. A man trying to toe the line between friendship and self-preservation. "She's not in today," he said. I didn't ask who. I just sipped my coffee. "Madison," he added. No email, no out of office, no word. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. Said nothing. Then Thursday came. Another call. "She's here," Brian whispered. "But the blinds are shut. Haven't opened since she got in. Doors locked." I could hear the unease in his voice, that soft crackle people get when they know they're brushing up against something they weren't meant to touch. "She hasn't come out for coffee, not even water. People are talking." I thanked him. Hung up. That afternoon I walked out to the garden, pulled weeds, trimmed hedges, let the silence hum between my ears. I didn't replay the letter. I didn't need to. It had already done what it needed to do. Friday, the phone rang again. I didn't answer it right away. I let it buzz until it stopped, then called back when the sun started to set. Brian's voice was tight, hollow. "Something's wrong, really wrong." She hadn't spoken to anyone all day. Her assistant knocked 3 times. Nothing. Around 4 o'clock, a junior staffer finally used a spare key to check on her. "She was on the floor, Paul." The words landed heavy. She was just there, sitting, holding the letter. Her hand was shaking. They say she read it 3 times before she stopped moving. They say she locked the door after the first time, pacing in circles, murmuring to herself, the blinds drawn tight like they could keep out what was already inside her. Her confidence, that glossy manicured armor, had cracked. Not shattered, not exploded, just split. Hairline fractures spreading slow, quiet, invisible from the outside. They say she sat at her desk for nearly an hour, staring, not typing, not moving, just staring at the page, as if the words would rearrange themselves into something less damning, as if the facts might flinch. And then, her body gave out. They found her with the letter still in her hand, thumbprint smudged in the corner, USB drive lying next to her heel, a trail of spilled matcha soaking into the edge of a rug that probably cost more than my first car. HR was called, legal too. The head of compliance left a dinner to drive straight in. Phones started ringing. Files started vanishing from shared drives. By Monday, an internal investigation was unofficially launched. And me? I sat right here. Same chair, same porch, same cup. I watched a single ant crawl across the railing like it had somewhere more important to be. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just listened to the wind move through the trees and felt nothing. Because I hadn't ruined her. She did that all on her own. I didn't forge the numbers. I didn't approve the payments. I didn't erase the logs or redirect the audit. I just reminded her. I held up a mirror and asked her to look. And when she did, she saw everything she'd tried to bury blinking back at her. People like her don't fall in explosions. They don't go out in flames. They dissolve, bit by bit. Ego first, image next. Then finally, the story they told themselves about who they were. That's what cracked. Not her reputation, her reflection. It wasn't just about what she did. It was about what she became to do it. And once she saw it, really saw it, the silence set in. I heard later that she went home under observation. The board put her on personal leave, spineless language for, "We're letting you sink slowly so no one sees the splash." There would be no press release, no internal memo, just an absence, a name that stopped appearing in calendars, a desk that remained suspiciously empty, and eventually, a locked door. That's how people disappear in places like that. Not with noise, but with edits. She'll resurface eventually. They always do. New company, new title, same patterns, buried deeper. But she'll remember that letter. She'll remember the stillness. She'll remember the feeling of her own story turning on her. Not because someone lied, but because someone refused to. And I'll remember the porch, the coffee, the breeze, the way the world didn't change, because it didn't need to. She did. It's funny how quiet peace can be. Not the kind that wraps you in joy, not the fireworks kind. I'm talking about the kind that sits beside you in the morning while the kettle boils. The kind that doesn't ask for attention, just breathes when you breathe. I didn't find it all at once. It came slowly, like the rest of me. I live 2 states away now, smaller town, fewer stoplights, the kind of place where people still wave from their front porches and nobody cares what car you drive. I rent a workshop off a gravel road, fix old motorcycles for cash, and teach small engine repair twice a week at the community center. Kids mostly, a few stubborn retirees. I like it. It's quiet, simple. Things break, and I fix them. That rhythm suits me. Nobody here knows what happened, at least not the whole of it. Most people think I just retired early, took my golden parachute and drifted off into the sunset. They see the calm. They never ask what came before it, and I never offer. But the letter stays with me. Top drawer, back corner, beneath a stack of oil-stained manuals and registration forms. I don't look at it often, maybe once or twice a year, just enough to remind myself it's still there. Not as a trophy, but as a tether, a little piece of something unshakable. See, I used to think loyalty meant silence, that protecting the machine made you a part of it. But over time, you learn. Machines don't love you back. They'll grind you down to powder, sweep you out the door, and hum along like you were never there. The truth? You're not part of the machine. You're just the wrench someone reaches for when the gears jam, and when your handle gets worn smooth. They toss you. But I wasn't broken. Just set down. She thought firing me would erase me, that by cutting the cord, she could cut my memory too, that no one would ask where I'd gone, that I would fade like old wallpaper, peeling quietly, leaving no trace. But I didn't fade, because I never needed to scream to be heard. That's the part they never understand. People like her. They think silence is weakness, that calm means surrender. But some men, some of us carry storms behind our ribs. Stillness is not softness. Sometimes it's calculation, patience, precision. I never raised my voice, never slammed a door. I didn't torch the place, didn't flip the table. I just opened the right window and let the truth blow in. The letter wasn't a weapon, it was a mirror. I didn't build the fire, I just pulled back the curtain so she could see the smoke. She lit every match herself. I just showed her the pile of ash under her chair. And when it came, when the collapse finally found her, I didn't celebrate. I didn't watch the headlines or check her LinkedIn. I didn't need to. What mattered wasn't her fall. It was the fact that it happened on her own terms, on her own lies. I was never the problem. I was the witness. The man who sat in the corner office for 28 years and kept the receipts. The man who remembered when the numbers didn't add up. The man they tried to erase. And when no one wanted to hear what I had to say, I let the evidence speak for itself. No threats, no grandstanding. Just facts. Paper, ink, signature, timestamp. That's all I ever wanted. Not revenge. Just the truth. To be seen, heard, acknowledged. To know I wasn't crazy. To know that the story I lived didn't end with a lie in someone else's mouth. And now I fix things. Not companies, not people. Just engines, simple things, honest things. Things that make noise when they're broken, that don't lie about what they need, that hum when they're whole. Sometimes a student will ask why I left the corporate world. I'll smile, shrug. Got tired of neckties, I'll say. And they'll laugh. Because they don't know. Because they don't need to. The truth doesn't always require retelling. Sometimes, just knowing it was told, once, and that it landed where it needed to. That's enough.